ready.
Happy Halloween from Whitley, Dwayne, and Freddie Brooks. Let's make prune cobbler. If you watched the show A Different World in the late 80s and 90s, then you know Dwayne Wayne's mother, played by Patti LaBelle, used to bring him prune cobbler. Y'all, I have never had prune cobbler, but I decided to make it to get fully into character. When I Googled it, it said Patti LaBelle was feeding Dwayne Wayne blueberry cobbler, but I wanted to make actual prune cobbler, so I decided to slice up some plums. I washed my plums, dried them off, and then cut them in half just like this. To make this recipe, you're going to need about 4 cups of sliced plums. I used about 5 or 6 plums for this recipe. Make sure to get plums that are not too ripe. You want them to be kind of firm, and cut them into slices about this thick. In a separate bowl, you want to add in your plums. I actually used probably maybe 4.5 cups. I used a lot. Y'all know I measure with my heart, so mine was about 4.5 cups. Now you want to add in about 1 cup of sugar. If you want your cobbler to be more tart and not sweet, add less sugar. Now you want to add in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch to your sugar. If you don't have cornstarch, you can use tapioca. I never have that, so I always just use cornstarch. The next ingredient you're going to need is some cinnamon, so add in a 4th teaspoon of cinnamon. The next thing you want to do is add in some lemon zest. I zested up this entire lemon and added it to my mixture. The lemon zest is going to cut a little bit of the sweetness and bring out the flavor of the plums. When I tell you I was in my Whitley Gilbert feels as I was making this plum cobbler, I grew up watching A Different World. It was one of my favorite TV shows. On the show, Whitley was from Richmond, Virginia. I didn't grow up in Virginia, but I did grow up in North Carolina. And there was so much that I related to about her character on the show. I loved how she grew and evolved on that show. She definitely was a princess and was definitely spoiled to start out. But her glow up to stand on business in the later episodes was everything. Now back to the recipe. Once you have all of your plums coated, you just want to add it to a baking dish. You could also use a 10-inch cast iron skillet as well. Y'all know I love baking in a cast iron skillet, but I just decided to use a baking dish. But either one of them will work. Make sure you have everything in. And then level out your plums. You want to make sure they're level so the biscuit-like topping that goes on top will cook evenly in the oven. I don't know if you guys know, but A Different World was filmed on Clark Atlanta and Spelman College's campus. But the show depicted that the college was located in Virginia. And baby, it doesn't say where in Virginia, but as a Hamptonian, we truly feel that it was reflected of Hampton University, where I went, my home by the sea. Y'all can argue about that in the comments. Anyway, for your topping, you want to add 1 cup of flour and 1 1/4 teaspoons of baking powder. Y'all, when I tell you this topping was so good, I actually doubled it at the end because I wanted more topping than I wanted plums. So once you added your 1 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, you want to add in some salt. You're going to need 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Now, for the life of me, I could not find my pastry blender, so I just added my cold butter to my favorite grater. Y'all, this grater is in my TikTok shop showcase, and I absolutely love it. So all I did was grated up 1 stick of butter into my mixture. If you don't have this grater, all you have to do is just cut up your butter in cubes and use a fork or a pastry blender to blend it into the flour. But I couldn't find my daggone pastry blender, so all I did was use my hands once my butter was grated up into small pieces. I just work smarter and not harder. This grater is everything. Once your butter is in your bowl, all you want to do is mix everything up. You want to make sure your butter is well coated, and you want to use your fork or your pastry blender to make sure that your flour and your butter turns into crumbs. And the best way to do that is to put down that fork and just get in there with your hands, okay? I was like, girl, stop playing and show the folks how to really do it. Just get in there with your hands and make sure that butter and that flour is incorporated well. You really want this mixture, as I said, to look like sand. It's not going to take very long. You just want to be patient with making sure everything is well incorporated. While I do this, can we take a little time to talk about the love story between Dwayne and Whitley? Baby Julian, Keanu, Byron, none of these people could keep them apart. When I tell you they were meant to be, I honestly love the chemistry of the two of these characters on this show. They were polar opposites. Whitley grew up in the South and Dwayne grew up in the North. She came from well-to-do parents and Dwayne's parents were a part of the middle class. He was responsible and she was a spoiled princess. Like literally polar opposites, but they made the cutest couple and they were definitely the best of friends, which I absolutely loved about their relationship. I know y'all didn't think I was gonna get my POV of A Different World in this video, but you are. And this bomb recipe. Okay, once you have your mixture look a little bit like this, you just want to add some milk. You need about a 1/4 cup of milk, and just use whole milk. Once you add in your 1/4 cup of milk, you want to add in 1 lightly beaten egg. And like I said earlier, I doubled this recipe because I ended up wanting more crust and more topping on this cobbler than fruit. If I would have added the plums to a square baking dish, I probably would not have needed to make the topping twice. My pan was a little bit bigger and I like more topping, so that's why I made it twice. So you just want to mix this up really good. You want it to come together where it's more of a wet dough. You don't want it to be dry and crumbly. So if you feel like you need to add more milk, you can just add another splash and it'll come right together. You can also use this topping recipe if you want to use any other fruit like blackberries or blueberries. They will work perfectly, and even apples. This cobbler topping recipe is absolutely everything. So you don't have to use plums. You can use whatever fruit you like. If you grew up watching A Different World, I would love to know in the comments what was your favorite part of the show. There were so many topics that happened in real life that were discussed on this show that I really appreciated them highlighting. Topics like HIV, sexual assault, apartheid, domestic violence. So many topics, so many issues that we can relate to today. Once I got to college, my experience at Hampton University really reflected what I saw on A Different World. I tell people all the time that my time at Hampton University was the best 4 years of my life. I am so grateful I got the opportunity to experience going to a HBCU. It really shaped my life in so many ways. I'm so grateful for the forever friends that I found in Twitchell Hall my freshman year going to Hampton University. I certainly pray that one day my daughter will experience what it's like going to an HBCU. It is truly a different world. So what you see me doing now is just scooping out the mixture and adding it on top of the plums. The plums are going to cook under this topping, so all you want to do is just mash the topping down a little bit with a fork so it's nice and even. That way it bakes evenly and you have most of that topping over the plums. You want to make sure you preheat your oven to 350 degrees and you want to bake this until it's nice and golden brown on the top. For some extra razzle dazzle, I just added some raw sugar and added it to the top. This is the sugar that I put in my coffee every day, so I had some on hand to add to the topping. Now your plum cobbler is ready for the oven. You just want to bake it until it looks a little bit like this. Fresh out the oven, fabulous. For my first time making this, it came out so good. The only thing I would do is cut back the sugar a little bit. So instead of using a full cup, I would just use 3/4 of a cup. The topping is to die for. It is so light and fluffy and was so delicious. I mean, you cannot tell me this does not look absolutely delicious. This is definitely a perfect fall dessert to make for your loved ones. It actually will be good for Thanksgiving or even for Christmas. Before I plated it, I let it sit for a little bit, probably for about 5 to 10 minutes. Because I added that cornstarch to the fruit, the sauce was nice and thick. I made this as a joke to go with my Halloween costume, but I'm so glad I made it because I loved how it turned out and how it tasted. Baby, my husband does not like hot fruit, so I have got to include the outtakes of him tasting this prune cobbler. Here you go. I made your favorite, prune cobbler.
That's good, baby.
Here you go, Pookie. Okay, you ready?
Start laughing. All right, let's go. See? Oh, you're laughing. Take it.
Here you go, Pookie.
You're gonna slice it, right?
Come on.
Right.
Here you go, Pookie.
That's good, baby.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for watching, and happy Halloween from me, Spilling the Sweet Tea.